For those of you who do not know, I have four favorite numbers: 3, 7, 9, and 11. So this is chapter 11 of Dr. Ralph Richard Banks's Is Marriage for White People. And what I'm realizing is that this book actually reads more like a textbook. And when I say textbook, I don't mean McGraw Hill and Macmillan. I don't mean that. I mean more like a textbook for like when you have decided that your major is going to be sociology or, ethnic studies. It reads like that kind of book. And as I near the last chapter, I'm realizing that so much of the end of this book, like literally there's chapter 11 and then there is an afterword. So we're pretty much done with the book. So if you've been on my channel and you've been listening to me talk about this book, you've been hearing me near the end. But I thought there would be like at least, 16 chapters because good God, the acknowledgments, the notes, the annotated bibliography, and the bibliography is just a partial bibliography. So it's just amazing the massive amount of work this man has done and the massive amount of journals and books and things that he consulted. Um, it's a sad thing to see how many people would brush this book off when in reality so much work has been done. I mean, the books that I could name right now: the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, um, Digestive Education and Statistics, um, let's see, Guttmacher Institute, Hamilton, Brady, um, Characteristics of U.S. Abortion Patients, um, Demographic Trends and Reports. I could keep going. U.S. Census Bureau 2010, U.S. Census Bureau 2009, U.S. Census Bureau Population Division Fertility and Family Statistics Branch 2004. Like the pages, there are tens of pages of partial bibliography and then also notes as well. So an incredible amount of research went into this book. And it's just amazing to hear people say, oh, it's propaganda, it's fake. And for people to come up against this, I will make a video where I just point my camera and flip the pages. Not of the entire book, but just of the end where the annotated bibliography is. And I'm probably going to read the acknowledgments just so that you can hear the names of the people who helped this man to compile the study and what is hidden info, because these people are on an incredible level of research, a standard of research. Anyhow, I'm going to read all of chapter 11 to you right here, right now. So I'll make a timestamp so that if no one wants to hear this long, lengthy intro, they could just go on ahead and click towards the minute mark where I begin reading. So chapter 11 is called Saving Black Marriage. And I decided to read this chapter all the way through just because this seems to be the biggest conversation. It reads, Joe Lehman and Teresa Johnson are married. He is white and she is black. They differ along many dimensions. He was born and raised on the west side of Los Angeles and played basketball at UCLA before embarking on a successful business career. She was born in Louisiana and had 2 children by different fathers before making her way to California as an adult. Their personalities contrast too. She's boisterous. He's not. He's cerebral and contemplative. She's not. She's stylish and flamboyant. He's not. He's rich. She's not. As improbable as their relationship may seem, it is also emblematic of some of the challenges and benefits that await Black women who open themselves to interracial intimacy. They met by chance in the late 1990s when Teresa rang Joe's doorbell one day. Joe was remodeling his home, and his building contractor had recommended Teresa as an interior designer. Teresa came to examine the project. She showed Joe some swatches of cloth and samples of wood grains and described in detail the array of possibilities he should consider. But all Joe had on his mind was her. He can still remember, these many years later, exactly what she was wearing: tall black boots and a knee-length skirt, as Joe describes it, billowed in the wind and left her leg exposed just above the boot. I wasn't seeing a black woman, Joe explains. It just happened. Or I wasn't seeking a black woman, Joe explains. It just happened. Is it true that Joe wasn't seeking a black woman? When he registered with an online dating service some months earlier and selected the characteristics he preferred in a partner, Joe checked white. But he didn't check the white box because he was adamantly opposed to dating a black woman, much less out of any antipathy toward African Americans. He checked the white box as a reflex. Growing up in a predominantly white environment, he had always dated white women, as had his friends. There are so many reasons relationships don't work out, he reflects. Why not try to make it so it does work out? The more things you have in common, the better. On his first date with Teresa, Joe wanted to make a good impression. I took some flowers from the backyard and I went to pick her up, he recalls. Teresa lived in a working class minority neighborhood that Joe had only glimpsed from the freeway. When he arrived at her townhouse, he felt more than a little out of place. I had pants that were probably a little too short, he recalls, certain that people had immediately pegged him as a goofy white guy from another part of town. Things got worse. I knocked on her door and these big black boys answered. There were four of them, Teresa's two sons and their two friends. They were watching a boxing match on television, Joe remembers, and they were rowdy and loud, wrestling, hitting each other. They were, as Joe says, black and scary. I'm sitting on the couch waiting for Teresa with my pants too short and my little bouquet of flowers, thinking, where am I? This is not my world. This is very interesting. Teresa didn't quite fit into Joe's world either. Joe's best friend, a man he'd known since college days nearly 3 decades ago, did not accept Teresa. Throughout their decades-long relationship, this friend had never had a problem with any woman Joe dated until Teresa, Joe's only black girlfriend. At Joe and Teresa's wedding, his best friend came to shake his hand and said, if you're happy, I'm happy. He meant to offer congratulations, but to Joe, it didn't feel that way. It felt like he was saying, you're kind of crazy to marry this woman, but if you're happy. The friend told Joe later, I'll see you at the weekly poker games, but I can't see you with her. I don't want to do things as couples. Joe pauses as he tells me this. That was pretty ugly, he concludes. For a while, they did see each other at their weekly poker game, but then Joe stopped going. I gave him up, he says, a loss that Joe describes as shattering. When a man loves a woman. Y'all know them lyrics, he'll turn his back on his best friend if he puts her down. Lord have mercy. And Mr. Uppity had one of those moments anyhow. And talking with Joe about this episode, it struck me that for Joe, the decision was simple. If his friend could not accept Teresa, then Joe could no longer accept his friend. To this day, Joe and Teresa disagree about why his friend rejected her. Teresa concludes succinctly, he lives in a lily white world and I didn't fit with the color scheme. Joe offers a different explanation. It wasn't that Teresa's black, he says. It was just a personality clash. It had nothing to do with race. He prefers to believe that they didn't get along because his friend, a widely known and far from modest cardiothoracic surgeon, expected people to defer to him, which Teresa refused to do. Their personalities clashed in another way. He is Birkenstock people, Joe explains. Teresa is high-heeled people. They just didn't mix well. I have never met this friend, but I admit I am inclined to favor Teresa's account. She hadn't drawn a hasty conclusion. I try not to make things about race, she says, but at the end of the day, after I do the checklist of everything else that could have gone wrong, then I say it's race. Her husband refuses to accept that possibility. Joe cannot bring himself to think that the man he expected to be his lifelong friend was a racist. But such disagreements about racism don't threaten their relationship. There is too much else that draws them together. They complement each other. Teresa is everything Joe isn't. Stylish, emotionally expressive, forthright, and he appreciates those things about her. He knows that he can learn from her, that her example might prompt him to develop certain aspects of himself. And Teresa appreciates that Joe both accepts her and encourages her to grow. With other men, she hasn't always felt that way. With Black men, she says, I've often felt like I had to stifle my growth so as not to outshine my man. She mimics the criticism she'd heard so often. Why you got to be so smart? You just a show off. After years of relationships with men whose own personal and professional failings left them too insecure to support her, Teresa realized that she needed a man like the one she eventually found. One who was not intimidated at all, she says. In fact, he'll tell me, why don't you push yourself? Going natural. On the first date, when Joe picked Teresa up from her townhouse, she wore her hair long and straight, as she always had. Now, 5 years into their marriage, this regal, dark-skinned woman wears her hair in twists, what some people call sister locks. She explains, I wear my hair natural now. I used to relax it, blow dry it, flat iron it, curl it. Teresa, along with untold numbers of Black women, had always spent long hours at the hairdresser, enduring harsh chemicals and straightening combs, and always attentive to the first sign of needing a touch up. Struck by the contrast between the woman standing before me and a picture of her from before she met Joe, I asked, what made you switch? He did, she says, gesturing toward her husband. From the beginning, they'd had issues about hair, as when Joe asked, is that your hair? And Teresa responded without missing a beat, yeah, I bought it. I got it in my head. It's mine. Joe had never dated a woman with a weave. Once he gently pulled on Teresa's, it gave her pause. A brother would know not to pull on the weave, she thought to herself, but she tried to be patient. Whatever Joe asked, she answered. Still, he remained, in her view, clueless. I like real hair, he told her. It's simple as that. Teresa couldn't imagine going without extensions, much less not straightening her hair. She had straightened her hair throughout her entire adult life. Her mother had straightened her hair during her childhood. A few months after their conversation about Teresa's weave, Joe asked a seemingly innocuous question. What's that burning? He said. There was no cause for alarm, at least not as far as Teresa was concerned. She was doing her hair the old-fashioned way. Once I explained to him how I did my hair, Teresa recalls, he pleaded with me, stop it. Just stop it. Don't do it anymore. She thought to herself, oh my gosh, can I go out of the house with natural hair? Teresa had always wanted to have good hair, a term widely used among African Americans even today. But Joe didn't even know what good hair was. It was just icky to me, he says, of what she went through to keep her hair straight. It wasn't her, it just wasn't right. Still, he didn't push a natural hairstyle on Teresa. He said, I love you, Teresa recalls. And then he asked her, try it, just try it for me. And so she did. Teresa's story, I'm sorry, this really reminds me of when Crystalline Carrison was accused by another YouTuber of having slave hair and that her white man just liked her for slave fantasy. When in reality, this story between Teresa and Joe is actually very common with non-Black men feeling some type of way about weave, and not the younger generations. The younger generations know about weave and clip-ins and extensions and box braids, and they love that stuff. I see Asian guys all over TikTok just falling out over girls with box braids. For some reason, that's their ish. But at Joe and Teresa's time, not so much. You know, weave was just seen as kind of icky. And she gave up the weave and got sister locks. And I remember I was sprung off sister locks. I just knew that that was going to be the way that I went natural. And I cut off all my hair with the intention to get sister locks. The only sister loctician that was available in my state, I thought she was too much to handle, too much to deal with. Funnily enough, she was extremely divested. And I had never even heard the word divested, but she was beyond a swirler. I was pro-Black at the time, so she actually did kind of run me off with the way that she spoke about Black men. You know, I consider myself a recovering pro-Black, meaning that I don't ever truly depart from it, but I have seen the error of the pro-Blackness that I was sold, which is, you know, basically Black male identified, Black male centric, Black man first. And it betrays the dark-skinned Black woman more often than not. So anyhow, I've met a lot of Black women all over the Pacific Northwest who, when you see them with Black men, they've got their weaves and whatnot. And then when you see them with white men, they're always natural. And he can't keep his hands out of her head. Now, these days, I see more natural sisters with brothers, but definitely when that movement was happening, like I want to say like '06 ish, '05, '06 to the early 2010s, we were getting capped on, we were getting humiliated, sisters going natural where it was a joke across forums. Our hair, until we all grew our hair waist length, and now everybody wanted to. Gosh, it's a long story. Maybe I'll talk about that in a different video. If you want to hear more about that, let me know below. But anyhow, I'm going to keep on reading. Teresa's story is not atypical, at least not based on the interracial couples I've interviewed. Cherie, a Black chemist who argues about racism with her white husband, Michael, tells a similar tale. Like I said, like I have not read this book, y'all, but he's literally about to say what I just said because I'm in the field. I know I'm a Black woman. I see this stuff. Anyhow, Michael tells a similar tale. She too had locked her hair after Michael encouraged her to stop straightening it, a practice he called absurd. He pointed out how great it would be to be able to walk in the rain, come on now, to be able to walk in the rain or swim when they were on vacation. As it was, she spent her life trying not to get her hair wet. Even in the movie Something New with Sanaa Lathan and whatever that white guy's name was, you see how she ran from the rain and they had that moment, and then he asked her to take out her weave, and then he's almost caught off guard by how beautiful she is without the extensions. And her family is like, well, what did you do to your hair? It was your glory. And she's like, Mom, it was a weave. What do you mean? What's weave of mine? But this is a recurring theme. And that is incredibly liberating to have the hair you were running from embraced by the only male whose gaze matters, your lover, your husband, your boyfriend, your fiance. It's so healing. I couldn't keep Mr. Uppity out of my hair. And it was the best thing in the whole. I mean, in general, people respond very well to my hair, but I remember a time when weaves and perms and all that stuff was really very important to me. And I would be in tears if I had to leave the house, without my hair done, 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 done. Like it would just be too much for me. Anyhow, once she decided to go natural, Michael supported her fully. When you first start locking your hair, there's always a point where it looks bad for a long time, she explains. When I said, I don't think this is working, I'm going back to relaxing, he was like, no. When she took a class in hair locking techniques, she discovered that 9 of the 10 Black women in her class had boyfriends or spouses who were not Black. This is something that I wish the brothers would be more honest about. Y'all were not feeling type 4 hair. You weren't. I can pull up right now a bunch of different memes and Facebook quotes and stuff that says not all y'all got the kind of hair to be going natural, and y'all don't really blah blah blah. You look like this, you look like a Brillo pad, you look like a beady bead, like all kind of stuff. Y'all were not rocking with that hair. Y'all were not rocking with our hair. I remember even Black women used to be afraid to get dreadlocks. Now we got Chloe and Halle. Now heartthrobs have dreadlocks and fake locks, faux locks. But I lived, like I was a young girl during a time where because I always loved locks, and people were just like, don't you dare. Don't you dare do that ugly mess to all that beautiful hair of yours. And I mean, if I can be completely honest, Mr. Uppity almost wanted to grow locks because locks are such a weakness for me. And I was just like, damn a lock, like you're everything, you're Superman to me. You don't need anything. But like I've always had a bit of a weakness for 2 things. Bald heads, the combination of a bald head with a beard, and locks. I mean, a guy could be a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. He is jumped up a couple levels if he's got some good locks. Not one free form down his head, but if he's got, at least a few dozen and they're well kept, my God, today I have a problem. I'm never the type of woman who, Mr. Uppity was very attractive, but I never was the type of woman who needed a man with a beautiful face. I was never the type of woman who needed a man with a beautiful body. I was never the type of woman to break my neck for, you know, the athlete and the gym rat and the trainer. It was always the way a man spoke to me, the things that he said in his character that kind of, like I was almost, very sapiosexual. Like it was the things that I heard, it was his mind and the character that really got me. But with all that being said, dreads could break my neck. And all I'm trying to say with this story is that as much as I was in love with dreads, I was terrified of getting them because of how black men were treating women about the texture of their hair. And they want to scream divest or swirl her off with her head instead of being real about that shit. You aren't feeling nigga naps. Just say it. You weren't feeling nigga naps, and half of y'all are not now, and you still talk about good hair and are still trying to, re-engineer black women with non-black women so you can have the daughter with the light skin and the good hair. Like why can't we talk about this? See, that's not an insult. This is actually constructive criticism. This is actually, just critical thinking. But it's like when you find all these women with all this, quote unquote nappy hair with all these white guys, like that was a trend for a long time. That was a trend for a long time because brothers didn't want women who look like that. I have no idea why that cannot be an honest conversation. Just tell the truth. Man, I ain't trying to fuck with no girl looking like Offset. Come on, man. Oh, Tracy Chapman looking ass. Oh, Whoopi Goldberg looking ass. These were jokes that we were humiliated by. I don't know how many times I got called, silly wearing a protective style. And if you don't like it, what are we supposed to do? Just keep bending and breaking ourselves and perming ourselves into a bunch of fibroids? Or go natural and go for the guy who likes it? If you like it, great. If you don't, another man will. You could carry on and she could carry on. Anyhow, one day she decided to go natural. Michael supported her fully. When you first start, I already read that. When she tried to go back to perms and he protested. Cherie concludes that black women who are willing to date a non-black man are also unconventional enough to wear natural hairstyles. Booyah. She also wonders whether non-black men who partner with black women are especially open to those women wearing locks. Might these men be more encouraging of a natural hairstyle than black men typically are? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Does that make you feel betrayed as a black man for me to say yes? For me to say that typically, I mean, obviously, maybe not in 2022, but definitely during the time that this book is being written, you're talking 2010s and prior. Yeah, I would go ahead and say yes. White guys were definitely more open to black chicks with locks than were the brothers. And it's not that brothers didn't date them, but it was just like they couldn't stop being the butt of jokes. We was all, getting that creamy crack, aka that relaxer, that perm, trying to please you, trying to be beautiful to you, trying to look a little bit, more racially ambiguous to get with you, to please you, to catch your eye. I don't care what a woman says. She wasn't just doing it because she felt good about being beautiful and taking care of herself. No, she was playing to the black male gaze. That's what them perms and straight hairs and straight weaves and all that, all that down to your waist bundle stuff is really about. We're trying to look like what you like. Go to a black strip club and look for dreads. It's not that you won't find a dread head up in there, but you're gonna find one. And in order to have those dreads, she either puts them under a wig or is the baddest chick up in there. Anyhow, anyhow. Teresa thought during her young adulthood that a partnership with a Black man would rest on a foundation of commonality and understanding that would invariably nurture her well being. But as she reflected on her relationships with Black men, she began to think otherwise. I never had permission from any Black man I dated. She tells me that it was okay to be natural. No Black man I ever went out with suggested that I wear my hair short. And y'all know y'all don't like short hair. That's why you mock us and call us bald all the time. She says she heard from one Black man after another, wear your hair straight and long, baby. The Black men she dated and wanted her to have, quote, good hair. Teresa's experience may be extreme. After all, not all Black men prefer long, straight hair, but enough do that I heard other women report similar issues. One woman's former boyfriend still encourages her to let her hair grow long and not to lock it. Given that their relationship ended years ago, and even worse, that he's married, she told him, you don't get a vote. Another woman I interviewed, a lawyer, expressed to her boyfriend, you don't have to like my hair, but you making a decision about what I do with it? She paused. No. You have no jurisdiction over the hair. Now, me personally, that's not how I got down in my relationship. Mr. Uppity absolutely, the late Mr. Uppity absolutely had jurisdiction over what I did with my hair. When I would buy wigs, I preferred to buy a curly wig, but he liked that Nisha from Outre, that specific kind of it's a yaki straight. And so I just started buying a whole bunch of them, and I just started popping up on live stream after live stream with that Nisha from Outre. Yeah, I don't know nothing about Nisha. 5 years ago, Nisha was all the rage, honey. 5, 10 years. Anyhow, I actually still have Anisha from Outre. Anyhow, without getting too graphic, he definitely required real hair in the bedroom. And it wasn't like a strict requirement, like I was just ugly or unattractive, but he wanted to be able to get to my scalp and my roots and, me. So the wigs ended up being helpful because I could just kind of pull them off, hair hat, pull them off and on, and then have, hop in the shower and have my hair in a wash and go by the time he made it to me. Anyhow, yeah, so if I'm actually with a guy, he definitely gets jurisdiction over hair. Um, Unless he wants me to have it permed or like straighten it. I can see how certain things could be like, you don't have a say. Because there was a guy who liked for me to straighten my hair. And that was at a time where I had grown my hair down to my waist and I had lost so much hair because I wasn't used to being in public with my hair straight and I kept sitting on it. And that was a process that made me very, very compassionate to the white girls who were always tossing their hair. Because at first I would look at them and be like, just move it with your arm. Like why is it that serious? Why are you tossing your head like that? Like you want brain damage. But I had already lost so much hair due to sitting on my hair before I realized that I would just have to toss my head in order to move it. Because sometimes you can't put your hands in your head. Maybe your hands have moisture on them and your hair is straight. You don't want your hair to revert as a Black girl. So all that hair tossing, it starts to make a lot of sense. The hair tossing to get your hair out of your face, keep yourself from sitting on it, blah, blah, blah. It starts to make a lot of sense. Anyhow. For Teresa, letting her hair go natural brought a newfound sense of freedom. Having gone natural, she doesn't think she'll ever go back. Joe's ignorance about race may have irritated her, but it also liberated her. It was only because Joe didn't know anything about good hair that Teresa was able to leave it behind. As Teresa and I talk, Joe sits nearby at the kitchen table eating a sandwich. He almost doesn't seem to be listening, but he is. And at a breach in our conversation adds, I have no interest in making Teresa be more white. Zero. Teresa echoes his sentiments. He accepts me how I am. He never, ever, ever says that I don't look good. I can look in the mirror and know I don't look good, but he just loves me right where I am, just loves me. She walks behind him, puts her arms under his, and squeezes. Child, why is the next part of this called Dark But Pretty? Why is the next bold heading Dark But Pretty? See, I'm glad I'm reading this because I see what's happening here. We started talking about natural hair. Now we're talking about some skin color stuff. You, the brother's got to be real about this. You know, you like them light with the type 3 hair. You know that's the overall preference in our community. And when the ladies are not preferencing out here, when they're dark skinned with coarse hair and no booty, come on, somebody. You can't be mad at Katanji when she's not your type, when you would have never wiped her. So many brothers would take one look at Katanji, who is beautiful, and be like, nah, I'm good. And shout out to her because she's also got sister locks. Anyhow, Dark But Pretty. Maybe I will. We are a half an hour in. Let me see how I feel about this. I think I'll go ahead and read this. Teresa may have benefited in another way from her willingness to cross the race line. Teresa is dark-skinned. While some black women worry about having children who are too light, many black men don't want a wife who is too dark. That preference is reflected in popular culture. As in a line from Stevie Wonder's classic 1970 song, Living for the City, his sister is black, but she is sure enough pretty. But it's still the conjunction that commonly connects dark and pretty, an expression of an underlying premise so widely accepted as to escape scrutiny. This preference is also reflected in the experiences of many dark-skinned women, including some of the women with whom I spoke. One Atlanta woman whose radiant, clear skin is so dark it shines recounts men saying to her when she was younger, dark-skinned girls are cool, but I just have an attraction to lighter skin. Some men even tried to compliment her by saying, you're cute to be so dark. If you were lighter, ... The salience of complexion among African Americans is starkly presented in Spike Lee's late 1980s movie, School Days. Come on, y'all. I just got done talking about Tisha Campbell. Set at a black college, the film highlights the various lines that divide the black community, with skin color prominent among them. The membership of one of the two sororities at the school is exclusively light-skinned, while the other consists solely of dark-skinned women. It was giving very much AKA and Delta anyhow. Complexion not only divides the community, it also plays a large role in determining whether or not a woman is considered attractive, with the lighter-skinned sorority sisters usually finding more favor with the men on campus. These sorts of depictions are controversial, precisely because they resonate with the actual social history of Black sororities and with standards of beauty within Black communities. Come on, somebody. And see, Dr. Richard Banks, his mom is biracial. Either she's biracial or she's just a really like red bone, yellow bone type of color. He does describe her in one of the chapters that I did not read out loud on my channel, that I did not read from. But he described his mom and how his mom was adamant about having children with color, as a lot of light-skinned Black women are. They're adamant about not having, many of them want brown children. Like Malcolm X's mom she said, she made a comment about how she just married the darkest brother that she could find. And, you know, while Malcolm's brothers and sisters may have some color, Malcolm still came out red, Detroit red, right? Anyhow, he has discussed in this book how a lot of Black mothers have been very concerned about having Black children and how they've seen what happens to Black women in public that have light kids or racially ambiguous kids, and how they're automatically the nanny, or they're considered some kind of a, you know, babysitter, daycare giver, you know, when they're with their own kids, and how it causes danger and how they don't want that life. And at the same time, so many Black women are trying to keep color in their kids. So many Black men are trying to kick it out. Why can't we have that conversation? Why do we have to hate you to say that this is our experience out loud? Why do we have to hate black men and be attacking black men to say that this is our experience as black women? Why is it why? When you know it's true. Even if it's not true for you, be honest. You know you've heard these men in barbershops. You've heard these I was about to say slam poets, these freestyling ass Negroes who are like, yeah, I got a light-skinned daughter, and your daughter's dark and ugly as, whatever. Y'all have seen it and not said nothing about it, but because we say, oh, it hurts, and this is why folk are walking away, it's sellout and it's no excuse. You ought to stay with a man who thinks you're ugly and worthless. Be proud of your race. Stay with that man that hates you. Anyhow. In all these cases, the preference for light skin is a form of colorism, a legacy of the privileged status according to light-skinned blacks during and after slavery. Colorism within black communities nurtures an anxiety that one of my interviewees says trailed her throughout her young adulthood. Am I light enough? The worry is justified. As it turns out, recent research by economists using sophisticated statistical analysis has documented the effect of colorism in the African American marriage market. Boom. The researchers found that the lighter a black woman's complexion, the more likely she is to be married. I could break something right now. Because I told y'all the research has been done. That's why when these people are out here, yeah, well, maybe only 29% of black men are married, but 80% of them are married to black women. Show me what those black women look like. I promise they don't buy make. I promise the majority of them don't have MAC makeup darker than mine. Every last one of them is lighter than an NC-42. Every last one of them didn't even need for Fenty Beauty to exist because they didn't need shades that dark. They were still able to go to L'Oreal and damn Clinique and wherever else to find their color. I remember going to Victoria's Secret one time with a dark-skinned Somali girl that I knew, and they were like, sorry, hon, we don't have your color. I was like, let's go. She was like, I can't buy makeup here. I was like, and neither can I. Let's go. They got your color at MAC. Anyhow, research has exposed the African American community to one another, and we want to gaslight each other about these experiences. This is why, I just got dragged from one end of a live stream to the other by a divested woman. But I'm just like, this is why I don't care who says what about me, who is divested. I'm not going to make somebody disliking me, put me against your entire movement because I see what you're doing and I see that it has value. Every black woman doesn't need to be divested, but there are those that do. Dark-skinned black women are some of the most betrayed black women within the black community. And the black community, I'm sorry, does not deserve them. Y'all deserve Six and Danica because y'all are good to Six and Danica. You like how they look. You like how they talk. If they divested, yeah, that would be a problem. But for the woman you ostracize, for the women you throw away, for the women you neglect, for the women you use like ladders, come up with, no. No woman has to sit and be the come up woman. No woman has to sit and be the struggle up woman. No woman has to sit and be, I'm just with you until I become who I really want to be. And then I can do you like Kevin Hart did Tory Hart and replace you with an Aniko. Nah, bro, just get your Aniko from the start. And if you can't afford your Aniko, then you just work by yourself to get your Aniko instead of exploiting me and my private parts. Now I'm over here with stretch marks and all your kids. And you don't even want me. You never even wanted me. You just needed me. Yuck. Nobody wants that life. And you shouldn't be so willing to relegate women to that life. That says a lot about your humanity and who you are. And maybe you're not even deserving of the women that you do like. Anyhow. In the African American marriage market, complexion counts. Excuse me. Moreover, the researchers found that among married women, lighter skinned Black women marry higher earning shit. Let me. Okay, he's about to get it in. Let me go back up a little bit. Let me go back up because I talk too much. The researchers found that the lighter a Black woman's complexion, the more likely she is to be married. Moreover, the researchers found that among married women, lighter skinned Black women marry the higher earning Black men than their darker skinned counterparts. Y'all, I didn't even read this part of the book yet before I said, 80% of those women are Black, line them up for me. Because the percentages of who got a white mama, a Hispanic mama, yeah. They're not out here just like Kelly Rowland is wiped up everywhere. No, that's not what's going on. It's not a whole bunch of Michelles wiped up all over the place, but it's Beyonces that are wiped up. Lord have mercy. I'm gonna just keep reading because this is getting good and I don't want to mess it up. Moreover, the researchers found that among married women, lighter skinned Black women marry the higher earning Black men than their darker skinned counterparts. And the African American marriage market, complexion counts. While colorism is a long-standing phenomenon, the researchers suggest that the Black women who outnumber college-educated men 2-to-1, colorism operates with a vengeance. I want to throw this book at this man's head. Good God Almighty, he wrote his behind off. For dark-skinned Black women in particular, then, might an interracial relationship provide an escape from a color hierarchy in which many Black men are invested? No, he didn't say invested when the sisters are divested. No, he didn't. I told myself after I got dragged that I wasn't going to mention divested women again. But for these purposes, I mean, a lot of divested women are dark-skinned. A lot of the ones that I have at least physically seen, I mean, because there are definitely those who keep their cameras closed and have avatars and they're light bright. But I mean, a lot of them are dark skinned. And I'm just like, let the dark skins win. Like, you don't want them anyway. They lose with you because they don't have value to you. Why do you care where they go? Black women outnumber you by 2 million, and most of us are not red bones. Let them sisters go. Only 29% of the brothers are married anyhow. You don't want these women nowhere. But they hop, skip, and jump across the fence, and now they're public enemy number one. This is strange. Strange logic, because it suggests that you just feel entitled to a slave class of labor. It's bad character. It means you have a bad heart. Hell exists for people like that. I'm sorry. It's not right. You shouldn't just want to use people up and toss them out. If you can't give these people love, let them go where love is. Let them get it from where it's at for them. Don't trap them. Don't hold them hostage. Lord of mercy. Anyhow, for dark-skinned Black women in particular, then, might an interracial relationship provide an escape from the color hierarchy in which many Black men are invested? Teresa's experience leaves me wondering if an interracial marriage indeed allows Black women to opt out of this Black communal norm. I said Black communal norm. Teresa's experience leaves me wondering if interracial marriage indeed allows Black women to opt out of this Black communal norm that is more oppressive than comforting. As Teresa describes the irony, I can be Blacker with my white husband than with any Black man I've ever dated. Golly. I cannot tell you how many sisters I've heard say the same thing. Now, I dated a white guy, the last white guy that I involved myself with, and that was not my experience. Oh my God, that was not my experience. So hear me the wrong way because, baby, he thought my ass was too big. He wanted me to keep my hair straight. Like, mm-mm, mm-mm. I was literally considering a butt reduction. Literally researching it, studying it online. The way people go after BBLs is the way that I was studying how to, micro body contouring and just suck that behind off of me. Because obviously, marriage was on the table. Oh my God, I just trembled literally. But yeah, he wouldn't have it. He had me transforming. His mom, his Mima, they would make all kind of comments about frizzy hair and no, no. So while my experience does still stand, make no mistake, it's not common. It's the rarity. It's the unicorn or not unicorn, because a unicorn is rare and desirable. And that is not desirable. It's just rare. But it's the minority experience. Usually, I mean, you see all these white guys and Asian guys all over TikTok. They are parting hair, they are greasing scalps. They just can't leave the kinks alone. Anyhow, Black women benefit from interracial marriage in other ways as well. In the past, interracial marriages have may well have been more likely than same race marriages to dissolve, but the conditions that undermined interracial relationships in decades past, lack of familiar support, so societal rejection, have changed. Interracial couples encounter fewer barriers than ever. Recent research suggests that Black women may be less likely to divorce when they marry outside of their race than when they marry within it. Such research counters any assumption that for Black women an interracial marriage is fraught with peril. The studies are in and people are mad. The interracial relationships that last the longest are with Black women. That's what the research says. And you just heard this guy who was with Teresa, how he was on a dating app and he clicked, oh, I'm a white man, I'm gonna click white women. And it was just a knee-jerk response. You see who he's married to. This thing about nobody wanting Black women, like y'all, that's a myth. That's a myth. And I'm not even the way that I'm made, I'm a Black man preference. I'm not a white man preference. It's not that white men won't find me beautiful, because many do. Many have. But they've got a thing for the crystalline cares and archetype. I don't forgot what I was gonna say. Anyhow, thought comes back up, I'll let you know. Black women benefit from, excuse me, such research counters any assumption that for Black women in an interracial marriage, I read that way wrong. Such research counters any assumption that for Black women an interracial marriage is fraught with peril. So we were taught to believe that interracial relationships were fraught with peril, or in other words, are laced with negative experiences, and it is ultimately a bad investment. Now, that was true for me, but that's not true for the majority of Black women. All the research says that interracial relationships across the board last the longest when what's in it is an African woman, whatever man it is, white, Asian, or whatever. They're the least divorced, they're the longest married. Somebody's been telling us that we don't make good wives, and clearly that's not true. And these non-Black men are marrying all kind of Black girls. Like, they're not just marrying nerdy Black girls. They're not just marrying Dr. Black girls. They're also marrying Shaniqua. They're also marrying Sinead. They're also marrying I do hair and clap out all my syllables. I would definitely say, a lot of white men are looking for crystalline, but some are looking for not crystalline. Some are open to the most fiery, she's got a mouth on her woman, they can be attracted to that kind of thing. It's fun and exciting for them, and never a dull moment, entertaining as hell. I was listening to a white guy talk about how boring white girls are now that he's been dating black girls. I'm like, man, I'm not sure you should have said that out loud, but thanks. So a lot of times, what black men have a problem with about the stereotypes of black women, those stereotypes tend to fare well in relationships with white men. She got all that attitude. She got all that mouth. She's all that aggressive. She's all that bossy. She's all that confident. She's all that, whatever. And while the brothers are screaming, submit and be quiet and be mousy and be, whatever else, a lot of these white guys are just like, man, she can't be stopped. Power couple. Anyhow, the paradox. But we've seen that the arguments against interracial marriage that resonate most powerfully with many women are not about simply their own relationships. They are about the black race too. And at the center of the concerns about the black race are black men. Whoo, Hababosha. No, he didn't just, not black male centric, not black male identified. And at the center of concerns about the black race are black men. Booyah. So don't come at us crazy when we say that we are formerly, male identified, black male centered, black male centric, black male worshiping, because it's true for us. You were just never grateful for it. Maybe some of you were, but most of you were not. And yes, I said most. And at the center of concerns about the black race are the black men. Black men struggle. We lack jobs. We lack education. We fill the prisons. And this is him saying we as a black man. Black women witness these struggles, and many of them do not want to abandon black men. As they succeed, they want to help. Even in their intimate relationships, they want to lift as they climb. No, he didn't say lift as we climb. See, I knew he was going to go there. I knew he was going to say it. Lift as we climb was, there is a group founded by Mary Church Terrell. And if you guys were watching any of my Black History Month content, honey, when I talk about Mary Church Terrell, when I talk about Mary McLeod Bethune, when I talk about Harriet Tubman, like I get to crying. I get to I really, really damn near deify these women. And one of the advancement, I didn't forgot the name of the group, something about the advancement of the National Association for Advancement of Colored Women, NACW. Their motto was lifting as we climb. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Black women have never wanted to leave or abandon black men in the way that women who are swirling, and I mean, just the way that they're being blamed for stuff that is not their fault. They're blamed for having a response to stimuli, and that's not fair. You swung first, they swung next. It's baseball. I mean, infield, outfield. Like, what do you want people to do? Stay and rot? Anyhow, they want to lift as they climb. And those black men who surmount the obstacles that overwhelm others, well, they inspire admiration, and black women want them even more. So black women remain with black men. They are perhaps one of the most loyal groups of women in the world. You want to talk about men who build? Chinese men build, but Chinese women chuck deuces more than any other group of women in the world, and rightfully so, because with all their building, with all their masculinity, you need a man with sensitivity who's not going to commit inside. Like, Femicide was too much for Chinese women, and they collectively were just like, we will take a hike. Don't play these games with me. Y'all see these Chinese women and don't wonder what pushed them over the edge. I had a guy in my comment section, I believe it was Deacons at the Fence. He was just like, no, 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 no. Asian women interracially date more than anybody else. And I'm just like, you mean Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and Filipino? Sure. They're not all of Asia though. Because if you're talking Kyrgyzstan, if you're talking Pakistan, if you're talking Malaysia, if you're talking Myanmar, Burmese, if you're talking Indonesian, if you're talking Lao, if you're talking like, nah, these women are majority with Asian men. But you should look at how Chinese men did their women in order for them to come out like this and learn a lesson. But if Black women are not worth learning the lesson, then don't learn it. Get on your feet and get your non-Black, preference. Get your biracial preference. Like nobody's even against that anymore, bro. No, nobody's telling you shouldn't do that anymore. Y'all want to hold Black women hostage when Tariq Nasheed got on his show and was just like, y'all, listen, get a mixed chick and make sure her mom is the one that's white. Don't get the opposite combination. He said this stuff on his show in front of thousands of y'all, and y'all was like, yeah, 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 okay. No one's gonna oppose you in that because nobody wants to beg. I'm not jumping through, like, I had no problems jumping through hoops for my Mr. Uppity because I was his preference. I look like him and his mama. It's a self-loving man, so he loves his own reflection. But I'm not trying to jump through no hoops. I mean, if you prefer white women or super duper Sudanese dark women, like, I don't want to be with you. I don't. I know I don't look like that. I know that I'm not what does it for you. And I don't want to be in a relationship with you where you're fooling me into thinking that it does. I've been in a relationship with a Black man who didn't like Black women before, and it was a waste of time. And through, my level of compassion and, oh, he just needs love, he just needs time, I gave him more compassion than he ever deserved. I just needed to get out of there. He just didn't like Black women. After that experience, I could never be that girl again. I could never, if I don't know what it is, but I attract so many Black men who have either never been with a Black woman before. They're like, I don't like Black girls, but I like you. Nope. You ain't gonna make me an experiment. And then once one thing goes wrong, see, that's why I don't like Black girls. Cough the wrong way, part your hair the wrong way, stand up, sit down the wrong way. See, that's why I don't like Black women. Nope, nope. Not gonna do it. That can't be my burden. Anyhow. Black women, they are perhaps one of the most loyal groups of women in the world. Some imagine that by allying themselves with Black men, they can bolster the race. But here's the rub. The same scarcity that is the mark of Black men's disadvantage is also a source of power. Let's revisit the idea of the relationship market. We've seen that the central fact shaping the relationships of Black men and women is the numbers imbalance. Recall that relationships are negotiations and that, as in any negotiation, which party prevails depends on the power that that person can bring to bear. One important source of power is a set of options that each party has outside of the relationship. The better one's options outside of the relationship, the more power one has within. Because Black men, successful ones in particular, are scarce and Black women are not, Black men wield greater power as they negotiate relationships with Black women. We have already seen that for African Americans, the numbers imbalance contributes to a whole slew of racial disparities: herpes, HIV, unwed childbearing, abortion. And of course, there is a central fact that animates my inquiry, that African Americans are now the most unmarried people in the nation. We marry less and divorce more. We have fewer enduring and committed relationships than any other group. The most blameless, our children, bear the consequences. Even middle-class Black children lag far behind their white counterparts. Black women's response to this state of affairs? Some Black women redouble their commitment to Black men. They hope to build a strong Black family to bolster the Black community, to rebut lingering accusations of racial inferiority. What Annalise says for herself seems to capture the sentiment of many. Annalise, I mentioned this Annalise story earlier in the book, but she's the one who said, if I love Black men, then I need to love a Black man. It's a stirring call to action. She was the one who was defining her entire identity off of loving Black men, not Black women, not Black children, not just Black men, like so many of us do. But the strategy has not worked so well. We remain unmarried, at odds with one another, our relationships crippled by a distrust that can only be described as extraordinary. More, the stand by the Black man approach may worsen the very problems it intends to solve. To the extent that the problems of the Black family stem from the numbers imbalance, Black women's commitment to Black men can actually undermine the Black family that women hope to salvage. The more that Black women limit themselves to Black men, the more power Black men gain. And tell the truth, that's what you really want. It's the power at the cost of our lives. 2 million women need to swirl. They can divest if they want to, but they need to swirl. A good 2.3 million Black women, because that's how many Black women are outnumbering Black men. And even then, so many of the men marry out. You know, it's still competitive. These women are going where they're preferred, where not only do they not have to compete, but they're being competed for. I love that for Black women. I do. There's so many of us walking around here with incurable diseases and broken families and paired up with men with 9, baby mamas and futures all over the place because of that scarcity. And I'm just like, you can just switch your mindset to an abundance mindset once you take off the limits of race. Anyhow, Black women's commitment to Black men can actually undermine the Black family that women hope to salvage. The more that Black women limit themselves to Black men, the more power Black men gain. So what would happen if more women followed the lead of Teresa and opened themselves to a relationship with a man outside of the race? In other words, how do women like Teresa shape the African American relationship market? The first thing to see is that as Black women marry men of other races, the numbers imbalance among single African Americans diminishes. For every one Teresa who marries outside of the race, the Black gender imbalance becomes a little less severe. Your chances of having a side chick, a mistress, a jump off, a thought of this, that, and a third ruin your relationship become a little less likely. Let me put it like that. He writes, and as the imbalance shifts, so too does the power. Teresa's openness to exiting the segregated market then shifts the balance of the relationship power ever so slightly in favor of Black women. Even those women who remain committed to Black men benefit from Teresa's willingness to cross the race line. Imagine a man who has you and Teresa as an option, and then Teresa goes across the fence, and now it's just you. We arrive now at the paradox that is at the heart of the story I have told. If more Black women married non-Black men, more Black men and women might marry each other. If Black women don't marry because they have too few options, and some Black men because they have too many, then Black women, by opening themselves to interracial marriage, could address both problems at once. For Black women, interracial marriage doesn't abandon the race, it serves the race. Again, for Black women, interracial marriage doesn't abandon the race, it serves the race. Literally, if Black women leave and create more of a demand for themselves in their company, you'll have more Black marriages. Not this sorry ass 29% of Black men ever being married. That's including all the boomers, silent gen, everybody who's living now. It's 29% of the brothers who are married, who ever marry. And 80% of that 29 is married to a Black girl. And Lord knows that they're mixed and well, my dad was Black. My dad was half Black, so I'm Black. Okay. This is why I cannot oppose divested women. This is why I cannot oppose swirlers. I'm not divested. Swirling didn't work for me. I still have that option, but I don't necessarily want it. I have a preference for Black Boule. I do. I have a preference for Black Greeks. I have a preference for Divine Nine. I have a preference for Black nerds who run things. I like that. But oh my God, what a threat we as Black women have been to other Black women because we all want the same men. The ones that are marriageable, the ones that are capable of being fathers and in relationships. I mean, good God. They've got so many options. Why would they get married? So you're not getting married on account of your loyalty and you're waiting for a Black man to pick you. I mean, he's not getting married on account of he's got too many options. So why shut down business? Why shut down shop when business is good? But if a Black woman just dares to marry out, she solves everybody's problem. You get a couple million Black women to marry out, all of a sudden the whole Black community is going to be married because the stakes are higher. All of a sudden Black women are going to have more power in how they design their relationships, and they're not going to have to be co-wives and sister wives and accepting of, you know, whatever mistress, sugar baby, side chick, and how there's 4 of them and 1 of her. She ain't gonna have to put up with a bunch of baby mamas. Make yourself scarce. And I love how he says for Black women, interracial marriage doesn't abandon the race it serves to waste, because for Black men, it does. For Black men, it makes things worse for the entire Black community, but for Black women, it makes things better. Black men are in such small numbers that if pro-Blacks really gave a damn about Black women, their campaign for Black love would be directed entirely at Black men. Okay. Yeah. Okay, deuces. Okay, love you, bye. Well, my niece and nephew actually came in, and that was actually the last line of the book before he goes into the afterword. And if you want me to read the afterword, go ahead and let me know. This is already this has been an hour long, but anyhow, so the last word that he wrote was for Black women, interracial marriage does not abandon the race, it serves the race. Let me know in the comment section if you understand what he means by that. I did already break that down, but let me know that you know what he means by that, because there's a lot of sense in that statement. It's not the same when women do it as opposed to when men do it. I'm Uppity and I'm out.